Hey, Sydney.
Hey, Samuel.
Have you heard of Mitch Sweeney?
Who?
You know, international movie star Mitch Sweeney.
Oh, international movie star Mitch Sweeney?
I'm glad you're here, honey Sunday. I'm going to get right into the message. I'm going to tell it like it is, as they say. Oh, I heard a hallelujah. Did you think I don't know what the hell is going on? And a lot of strange places. Where in the hell have you been? Hell fire! Hell fire! Hell fire! All right. Okay, there's something else, too.
Hello and welcome to the Satire Fire podcast, a podcast bringing you the latest and greatest from your hometown beauty salon gossip. I am your host, Samuel.
And I'm Sydney. And I'm Sydney.
And today we are going to be starting a new series on a book called Lula Dean's Little Library of Banned Books by Kirsten Miller. If you are unfamiliar with the format of our show, this is going to be a plot summary episode for the book where we're going to talk about what happens in case you have read it and it's been a while and you need to brush up, or in case you haven't read it and you don't necessarily feel like doing so in order to follow along with the podcast. We're going to tell you everything that you need to know in order to better understand our next episode, which is going to be a historical context related to the book, and our third and final episode, which is going to be us analyzing the book and telling you what we think of it. But before we do any of that, we're just going to chit-chat for a little bit. So, Sydney, have you been reading anything or doing or watching anything outside of Lula Dean's little library of banned books? Have you partaken in any banned books lately?
Oh, that's a good question. I did want to stay on the topic of Lula Dean for a second because I wanted to use this time. I sound like I'm about to do like an altar call. I would like to take this time
If the spirit moves you to do so.
Like I'm in my Bible Belt mindset after reading this book. No, I wanted to say that, you know, if you're a regular listener of our podcast, or if you've just listened to a single episode besides this one, you often hear that we say, you know, support your local library, and I did it. For this book, I did check it out from one of my local libraries. I live in New York City, so the New York Public Library system is massive. I meant to look up how many libraries they have across the, like, New York City metropolitan area, and I forgot, but it's a lot. And so I did check this book out, and I think this is like, if you follow our social media, you've already seen this little teaser of what the book was going to be. But yeah, it's so easy to check out a book from your library. If you haven't done it, take it from me. Watch the vlog. Like, it's a short vlog for a reason, because there wasn't much to vlog because it's so easy. For the New York Public Library, it's probably different depending on where you live, how large your library system is. But, you know, there's an app, and you can easily just put a book on hold and then go pick it up, and they have it. And you can do that at most libraries, I assume. Maybe like a smaller town library doesn't have as online of a system. But
Yeah.
Regardless, I just like wanted to say that it's so easy to do, and it was very convenient for me because this is a newer book, and I wasn't really looking to purchase a copy yet, and I was able to get it and read it for the podcast. And so I just wanted to say that's one of many things you can do at libraries. But
Yeah, and the library game has changed since I was a kid. Like, my local library, you can check a book out for 3 weeks instead of 2, and no late fees anymore. They put a hold on your account so you can't check anything else out until you bring your stuff back, but they don't charge you for being late with some sort of content return, which I think is really great to promote that kind of accessibility.
And it's also, with the app, at least for my library, you can renew a book just through the app, so you don't have to visit the brick and mortar building, which can be really time saving, and like sometimes you don't have time to do that. And so, yeah, was able to use it. And I think you can renew a book at least through my library like 7 times or something before you have to return it. Like, it's an insane amount.
Yeah.
But it's probably, they have so many different libraries, so they have so many books.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you were trying to get like a newly released book, that might complicate things, but yeah. Anyway, sorry to ramble about libraries, but actually I'm not sorry. Don't apologize for rambling about libraries. But no, it was, I felt like a good time to, you know, show just like one way, the very obvious way that you can use a library. But, yeah. But other than that, honestly, I haven't been reading a lot recently because, as I mentioned last episode, I was traveling. And usually when I travel, some people read a lot when they travel, but I usually read like 0. It depends on if I have like a long flight or something, I might read, but I just did not get a lot of reading time in. But I did start watching Ginny and Georgia season 3 last night, and
Okay.
I only watched 1 episode, but I've definitely enjoyed that show. I really loved the first season a lot. And then I would say I liked the second season less. So we'll see how I feel about this season. I don't know. I've been seeing it all over TikTok and stuff. But I'm just like I've not been in a TV mood recently, really. Like,
That's fair.
yeah. But I've been wanting to watch that, so.
In
First episode was good.
I guess as a crossover to our last episode, I saw an article yesterday about how the community that built around Love Island as a TV show, they associated that community with reversing the trend in the loneliness epidemic. And I was like, oh my god, they're still talking about it.
No. I've never seen Love Island.
I haven't either, but apparently it's got a strong enough support base that it can help pull you out of that loneliness slump if you happen to be Gen Z.
Mm-hmm. If you happen to be Gen Z. What have you been reading?
So,
or doing?
This is going to be probably the least justice that I do to a book that I talk about on this show, because if I really wanted to give this book the attention that it deserves and the nuance that it deserves in a review, it would probably take me like 2 or 3 hours to talk about it. But I just finished a book that took me, I want to say, 6 months to read. And it was 2666 by Roberto Bolano, who was a Chilean poet and novelist. From my understanding, he was primarily a poet and then moved into novels because he had mouths to feed, and you don't make a lot of money as a poet in Chile or any of the other Central American or Latin American countries that he was publishing work in. And this was the last book that he wrote that he kind of envisioned as being 5 disconnected books that all revolve around one another, and they ended up getting published as one collected work instead of individually. But it's maybe the best book I've ever read. It was so moving and so beautifully constructed. You could easily see his background as a poet come through in a lot of moments, where just like the line by line construction of the novel was so pleasant to read and it was so flowing. But then the superstructure of the novel was so interesting, where it's essentially telling a story by not telling a story. There's like a heart to the story that it is revolving around, and all 5 of the parts of the story tell you something about the edge of the shape of it. So whenever you leave, you get this impression of what the story was by the vacancy that was left by the rest of the book. And it's very free-flowing. It doesn't give you much in the way of resolution. it doesn't give you much in the way of development or answers to any of the questions that it's raising, but it has such a aura about it and such a feeling of heaviness as a result of reading it. I'll give the heads up and the warning that, like, of the 5 parts, the largest part deals specifically with the series of murders of young women in a border town in Mexico. And the amount of femicide that is described in that chapter is intentionally oppressive. Like, it really, really weighs on you by the time that you start getting to the end of that chapter, because it's just literally like all of the rest of the story that's happening is happening in between chapters, where it'll be a chapter of plot stuff and then a chapter that says, on this month of this year, 3 women were killed. Here's the state that the bodies were found in, and give you like a police description of what had happened to them before they died. And so it's just reading about assault after assault after assault after murder, and some of these are really, really like children, not even young women, just children that this is happening to. And so if that's something that you're not into, there is obviously the possibility, because it's constructed in 5 parts that are loosely connected, you could read everything except for that part. But I feel like I said, since the book itself is kind of telling you a story by showing you all of the edges of it, this is like the most important edge. And so if you skip that, I'm not sure what your experience would be or your takeaway is from the book, but theoretically, you could just choose not to read that, and that would still be a way that the author felt was an appropriate way to read the entire work. But yeah, I loved it. It's maybe, like I said, my new favorite book, and I am very excited to read more by Roberto Bolano. This is my first book of his, and the way that he writes and the voice that he has is just so interesting and unique.
What, wait, is he, like, currently alive? Is this...
No, he died.
Did you say that? Sorry.
I don't think that I said that he had died, but this was his last book, and it was published posthumously in, I want to say, the early 2000s or late 90s. Which makes it's really interesting as a conceptual thing, because the book is so ethereal in its nature of not tying together loose ends and not really showing you what's happening in the story, that it leaves a lot up to question of how much of this is because it was the artist's intention and how much of it is because the book is unfinished. And I think that the publishers, there's like a edition note at the back of the book, and I think they make a very strong case for, broadly speaking, this book was always going to look like this, and it was never going to feel like a cohesive work in the way that you would expect a traditional novel to feel. But yeah, I think that it definitely adds something to the experience to know that, to some extent, the novel was left unfinished at his death. But with all of that introductory matter out of the way, let's get into the reason why we're all here today. The reason why I've gathered you here today, and that's to talk about Lula Dean's Little Library of Banned Books by Kirsten Miller.
I always knew Lula Dean was a little crazy, but I never thought she'd do something like this.
So, this is going to be an interesting book to give a plot summary of, because more so than any other book that we've read so far, this book is less plot focused and a lot more character focused. So there is a lot of plot that happens. Obviously, anything that happens in a book is part of the plot, but it's a lot more interested in showing you characters than it is in telling a tightly crafted story. So what I'm going to do is kind of give an overview of the stuff that you find out in the book that is leading up to the start of the book. Like, the book kind of starts in media res, and then you figure out some amount of information about what had happened before the start of the book. I'm going to talk briefly about that. Then I'm going to talk about a cast of characters, and then start talking about different elements of the plot. So, the book is set in 2024 in the fictional small town of Troy, Georgia, where a local busybody, Lula Dean, has recently gathered a group of quote-unquote concerned parents and started pulling books that they deem inappropriate off of the library shelves.
Pornographic.
Yeah, they're calling them pornographic. All of the buzzwords that you hear whenever people talk about bad books in schools, they're using them. You find out that the reason that she's doing this doesn't really hold much water. She was basically the victim of a prank in the library where a teenager put a book of erotic cakes on the shelves just to have fun, and she then used that as evidence that there was communist propaganda and pornography in the libraries that had to be dealt with. But that's where we're at. She's pulled books off of the shelves. She's then faced some criticism that she does not actually read and has never read any of the books that she's trying to ban, and so she puts a little free library on the fence in front of her house that she fills with books that she deems to be wholesome. And it's all like The Art of the Deal, Chicken Noodle Soup for the Soul, romance books about girls going to Paris and stuff like that.
My favorite is The Southern Belle's Guide to Etiquette. I think that one made me laugh.
Yeah, absolutely. So after putting that up, this is kind of where the book starts, is one of the characters who I'm about to talk about, Lindsay Underwood, has come back to town from college and, as an act of rebellion, gone in and taken all of the books out of Lula Dean's library and pulled the dust jackets off of them and refilled the library with the books that Lula Dean is looking to ban, just disguised within the wholesome book jackets.
It's so convenient that they were all hardcovers, you know?
It's so convenient that they were all hardcover, and there were one-to-one analogs as far as the size of the books.
Yeah, but whatever. We don't have to talk about that.
But, so now we're getting into why the book is kind of hard to summarize, and that's because it's told in a limited third-person point of view, with the narrator changing, or the point of view changing from chapter to chapter. So there's over a dozen characters that narrate within the book, and for the most part, each chapter is kind of serving as a vignette where there's some plot lines that are continuing throughout the entire book, and each story is kind of adding into that, some more so than others. But broadly speaking, each chapter is just kind of trying to build upon the themes that the book is set in place. And as a result, they're not super important beyond the fact that it adds to the point that Kirsten's trying to make. Mm-hmm. So, before we talk about any of those vignettes, I was going to tell you about the specific noteworthy characters that are in the book. And I'm sure that I'm forgetting some. If you have any particular pet favorites, Sydney, you are more than welcome to add those in. But the most important characters are going to be Lula Dean, obviously. She's a town busybody, local gossip. She's desperate for attention, and this is just kind of the best way that she has found to get attention. There's Beverly Underwood, who is a member of the local school board. She is the mother of Lindsay, who's going to be the next character I talk about. She has always kind of been keeping Lula Dean in check. And this is kind of the first time that Lula Dean's antics have gone beyond Beverly's scope. And she is also the ancestor of Augustus Wainwright, who I'll talk about here in just a minute, but that's Beverly. Lindsay Underwood is a college student, a lesbian college student, who has moved away for college, but came back specifically to try and help with the book situation and has since gone back to college. She just kind of like shows up, does what she can, tries to encourage Beverly to do more, and then goes back to college after pulling the stunt. There's Logan Walsh, who is a young man who was... I've been trying to avoid too many like spoilers in the character descriptions because we're going to talk more about him later. This Logan Walsh has got a couple of things that are going to be spoilers for his character, but there wasn't a good way to talk about them later on. So Logan was abused as a kid and has for several years been growing up as an orphan. And as a result of being an orphan and feeling isolated, he got taken under the wing of the local neo-Nazi and has kind of been viewing that guy as a secondary father figure. He is described by most of the characters as just kind of seeming off and strange.
Something ain't right about that kid.
Yeah, there's something ain't right about that boy. He's one of the members of the banning committee.
And he's just kind of like scary. Like everyone's like a little scared of him because he's really intense. But
yes. He's got very big army vibes. He lives on a compound with a gun range and stuff like that. He's just a very intense person to be around. Then there's Isaac Wright, who is the black gay high school valedictorian, who we're going to learn more about him in a minute, and Bella Cummings, who is the like high school prom queen. She's a friend of Lindsay's. She's the salutatorian and is friends with Isaac. And the last character, who's barely a character in the book, but I don't think you can talk about the book without mentioning him, is Augustus Wainwright, who is the founder of the town. He has a statue in the middle of town square, and he's viewed, depending on who you are, as either a Confederate hero of the Civil War, and people really respect and admire him, and by people I mean white people, or people are very, very aware of and point out the fact that he was a bad guy. He was a slaveholder. He was not necessarily doing everything that he claimed to be doing, but he's like a central figure for the rest of the book. Is who was Augustus Wainwright, and is he somebody who deserves to have a statue in the town? Were there any characters that you would classify as important enough to mention their name?
Maybe Delvin, the postman. I don't know. He comes up a lot.
Oh, yeah.
But
yeah.
I don't know. I really liked him, but yeah.
Yeah, I liked Delvin. I felt like he came across quite a bit, but he was kind of in the same boat for me as Wilma Jean.
Oh, yeah.
Where she's like important, but she's assisting the main characters. That's more than anything.
Yeah.
But Delvin is a local post office worker who goes around delivering mail as a post office worker would. Oh, and he has very much been inspired by the act that Lindsay did, where he's now also adding his own books into the library, and it's kind of reinvigorated his life to think that the town that he lives in is capable of the kind of resistance that's happening. And then Wilma Jean is just a really cool old lady.
Delvin just like pops up a lot throughout the book because he knows everyone, because he delivers the mail to everyone, and so he's just always there.
He's always there, and he knows everyone, and he knows everybody's dirty laundry. Like, whenever, I'll talk about it here in a minute, but whenever the local neo-Nazi gets exposed, Delvin is like, well, yeah, I knew that. I've been delivering his mail for years, and there's only so many times you can deliver mail with an iron cross on the outside before you put two and two together that, hey, this guy loves Nazis.
Yeah.
But with that out of the way, I was going to mention some of the important side stories before we talk about the main story, because these really play into what the book is trying to say. Most of them revolve around the same central plot line, where it is a person who has limited exposure to ideas that are different from their own, picks up a book from Lula Dean's library thinking that it's something, and then ends up accidentally reading a banned book and finds that it moves them in such a way that their lives become better as a result of it. So there's the wife of the local neo-Nazi leader who borrows a girly romance book, and it actually ends up being the Diary of Anne Frank. And so when her son gets radicalized by her husband and paints a swastika on the door of a local Jewish business owner.
The one Jewish guy.
Yeah, the one Jewish guy in town. She kind of snaps, and she ends up pulling all of her husband's Nazi memorabilia out of the basement and resetting the room up outside on the front lawn so everybody can see it, and exposes him. And then she ditches town with her son.
Yeah. It's also like she was in a very controlling, like, abusive relationship. Like, she had just been, like, conditioned to be in her place. Like, you know, a woman should be seen and not heard type thing from her husband. So it's not like she, too, was a neo-Nazi or anything. And he was always like, oh, I'm just a history buff. Like, I just like to know.
Yeah.
Like, it's, I mean, yeah, maybe you could be like, okay, girl. But no, it's just like she was going through, like, years of psychological trauma from this man. So it's kind of like...
and incredibly sheltered to the extent that she did not know that Anne Frank died at the end of the book. Like, she just never heard of Anne Frank before.
Yeah.
That was something that I'm glad you brought it up, because I should have mentioned it earlier. But I think one of the things this book does really well is it is incredibly sympathetic to every character.
Yes.
Every character, even if they are uninformed, they're not ridiculed for being uninformed. It's more showing, here's how someone could end up in this situation and why we should still give them respect. And even the people like Lula Dean or Logan Walsh are given these backstories where it's like, I don't agree with where you have come out from your experiences, but I can see why your experiences have brought you to this point.
We can talk about that more in the analysis episode, but that's something I love so much about this book. And the dedication of the book is for all the good people down south. Like, it's coming from a place of love, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll talk more about that, or I'll try to mention that in the context episode of just who she is as a person and why that is kind of how she acts. But yeah, so another important side story is that the wife of a local store owner finds out that her husband is cheating on her. And so she goes to Lula Dean's library and she borrows what she thinks is the book The Rules, which is a really old-fashioned dating advice book. But ends up, it's actually a book about witchcraft. And it helps her feel self-empowerment and understand her situation and come to terms with it and realize that leaving her husband does not mean that their marriage failed. It was actually a very successful marriage, and it's just a good move for both of them. And so helps her come to terms with the fact that she can amicably divorce her husband and it's not going to be the end of the world.
Because at first she's going to try to, like, witchcraft him into loving her again. And then she's, like, out in the woods. But she then literally kind of becomes a witch after that. Like, yeah. Which is iconic of her.
There's Elijah Wright, who is the brother of Isaac Wright, the gay valedictorian. And he and his family are in turmoil right now because Isaac has recently come out as gay. And Elijah goes to read a book just to, like, have something to do in the park and accidentally ends up reading a gay romance book. And it brings him to a place of acceptance about his brother because he's like, wait a second, maybe a gay lifestyle isn't that bad because these people don't do anything but talk and drink wine. Like, their lives is just like ours. It's not this crazy party that my parents are saying that it is. And he ends up having his mom read the book, and it helps her see a more accepting lifestyle, and helps all of the family move towards coming to terms with the fact that they don't need to pray the gay away when it comes to Isaac. And the last side story that I was going to mention, unless you had one that you wanted to talk about, Sid, was that the heavily sheltered son of the mayor reads, "Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret." And up until this point, he's been very much told that knowing about women and knowing about women's bodies is not a thing that a man should do. And despite the fact that he's a child, he's expected to follow the standard of acting like a man. And so it's a very taboo subject to talk about periods and tampons and stuff like that. And it gets him to a point where he's like afraid that there's something wrong with his mom, where she's going to die because she's sick and they don't want to talk about it. But he reads this book, and it helps him understand what a woman's experience is, and comforts him in knowing that his mom is okay. And that comes up later on because it helps his mom become a more accepting and understanding person and like open her eyes to the situation. But yeah, the bulk of it is he now knows that his mom's not dying.
Yeah. Did you guys comment on our social media? Let us know. Did you read "Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret"? I did.
I didn't. So I'm not a real woman knower.
Yeah. If you grew up identifying as a boy, comment and let me know if you read that book. I'm doing a social experiment. I need to.
And if the answer is no, you have to give a reason why you're choosing not to do so right now.
I did want to mention, just because I made you bring up Delvin, that the book that he picked up, I can't remember what the dust jacket was, but the book
Our Confederate Heroes?
Oh, yeah. No, because he was mad. He was like, what is this doing in here? Delvin is black, if
yes,
that's important to say, I guess, for this context. And then he, opens it, and it's a Toni Morrison book. Which one was it?
Beloved?
Yeah, it was Beloved, yeah. And so that was kind of inspiring to him. He was someone else in this town. He felt very alone in the fact that he thought everyone was probably didn't care about ancestry and who his people were and who his family was and their place in history, and everyone was hypocritical and they were racists and neo-Nazis. And then he realized someone switched the dust jackets and put Beloved in that little library, and he was like, whoa, I'm not alone. And that's what inspired
Delvin
him.
is a very good stand-in. I can't speak on the experience of being a person of color in the South, but as being a queer person from the South, I feel like Delvin is a good stand-in for the otherness that you can feel when you're in the South. And a lot of that comes from the stereotypes about the South. And I think that this book is doing what it can to combat those stereotypes. But the South is seen as this monolithic whole where everybody is conservative, everybody hates anybody who's different, everybody is xenophobic. And if you are living there, you kind of get indoctrinated into that being a reality of your life. And so you feel as though you can't express yourself or be who you want to be because everybody out there except for you hates you for who you are. And I think that it's a really moving story to see Delvin have that misconception challenged, to realize, wait, no, there are good people everywhere. The issue is that some places they don't feel safe to be a good person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But that's really... I'm sure you're going to talk about Darlene when you're telling the main plot.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So the main story starts back in high school for the main characters, where the man... trigger warning, this book touches on sexual assault, and I'm going to reference that here, but in high school, the man who is now the mayor of the town and several other boys raped a girl who was drunk. And Beverly knows that Lula Dean saw this happen, and instead of attempting to help or stop it or check on the girl afterwards, she tries to use that information to belittle the girl and make herself look better. And this is kind of like the nexus for why Beverly hates Lula Dean's guts.
Yeah.
But now, as a result of checking out, as a result of her kids checking out a book from Lula Dean's library and her reading it, that woman has decided to finally recount her experience in a social media post. And she doesn't specifically name names, but she says enough that basically this open secret within the town is exposed, and it results in the mayor stepping down from his post.
It's also like, this story is interesting. We don't have to get into too much detail, but Darlene is like, quote unquote, white trash. Like, she lives in a trailer,
yeah.
And it's like dealing with like class consciousness. And so like, just like someone who's like a person of color in the South might be afraid, not just like, that was a crazy statement, similarly to how someone who's a person of color in the South might be like unsure if anyone would listen to them or care about what they had to say. But when something like that happened to them, she's like, people also look down on me because I'm poor, and her mom like had her out of wedlock, like was a teen mother and things like that. And so it's just like, there's a lot going on that's like showing the different ways that people can put you in a box that's hard to get out of. And Beverly helps her get out of that too. Yeah.
So kind of simultaneously with that happening, Isaac Wright has done a DNA test and has found out conclusively that he is an ancestor or a descendant. He is a descendant of Augustus Wainwright, which serves as concrete proof of like what was another open secret at the time, that Augustus Wainwright, as a slave owner, raped quite a lot of his slaves, and therefore a lot of the black community in the town and around the town and the outlying areas in the state as a whole are also descendants of Augustus Wainwright. And this kind of serves as a point that they can use to highlight just how much of a piece of shit he was. Going back to the other thread, with the mayor stepping down, Lula Dean sees it as an opportunity to become even more famous. And so she starts to campaign for the empty seat, hoping to become mayor. And because of some coaxing from her friends, Beverly decides to run a counter-campaign to become mayor, with the main talking points of her campaign being, don't ban books, and also, we need to tear down the Confederate monument in our town square, and, oh, by the way, he's an ancestor of mine. And so that gets it a lot more media coverage because she wants to tear down her ancestor's statue. There's a rally that happens to support the Lula Dean for Mayor campaign, and it ends up getting interrupted by Bella and Isaac and Elijah, where they are holding a big banner and talking about the fact that, hey, this guy was my great-great-great-grandfather, and it causes a huge scene, and in the chaos that ensues, Bella gets knocked over, gets knocked unconscious, and
you're a national movie star.
Logan Walsh actually goes to grab a gun from an ankle holster as though he's going to shoot a high school student for holding a sign.
A black high school student.
Yeah, but fortunately ends up getting his line of sight blocked, and so he doesn't actually pull a gun and shoot anybody. From the heels of this, Isaac and Beverly plan a Wainwright family reunion where they're inviting everybody who is a descendant of Augustus Wainwright to come and spend a day hanging out in Troy. People worry that this is going to provide an opportunity for Logan Walsh to do something very violent. And so as a result of like checking in on him to see what's going on, they find that he's got like maps of the town square, and he's got these assault rifles and stuff like that. And on the day of the whole event, when he's confronted about this, he ends up killing himself as a result of being confronted.
And there was a lot, like, I mean, we only have so much time, and there's, like, so much mini plot in this book, but there was, like, a lot going on with Logan throughout the book that, like, made it concerning. Like, it wasn't just, like, he pulled a gun once. I mean, that is concerning in itself, but, like...
Yeah.
Like we said earlier, he's involved in that neo-Nazi group, but he kind of got dumped by... When the leader of the group's wife exposed him, everyone in town was like, that's a bit too far for us. And so he kind of got, like, outcasted by the town, and he was leaving to go move, like, where his family lived. But that, like, leader kind of put everything on Logan to continue the good
put up
work.
The good fight.
Yeah, and Logan was not satisfying the job in the way the leader wanted him to. And so basically he got dumped by this guy that was like a father figure to him, and he's never really had a father figure because his father was abusive. And so, like...
Yeah, which you find out is, like, the third father figure that he's had abandon him, where it's like his dad was an abusive piece of shit. One of the men in the town who was a high school coach was, like, a secondary father figure for a very brief period of time, but you find out that guy didn't understand the situation that Logan was in, and so didn't provide as much support as Logan needed in that time period. And then he ends up falling into right-wing propaganda as a result.
And we also find out... Sorry, I'm, like, focusing on Logan's story because actually it made me sob, which is kind of crazy because he's, like... When he killed himself, I cried. Which you know, he's doing, like, terrible things, but also I was just like, oh my god. Like, I feel like I've known people like Logan. And but we also, there's reason to suspect that he was the one who killed his father because his father died in a hunting accident, and we do find out that he actually did kill his father as, like, a 10-year-old or 12-year-old or something.
As, like, retribution for what his father has been doing to him.
Yeah, and his father was, like, terrible to his mother. She was diagnosed with, like, lupus, and he kind of just, like, was like, well, she was too weak, and, like, kicked her to the curb and didn't let Logan have a relationship with his mother. And so, yeah, just terrible things. And, I mean, he's a kid, and then he shoots his father in a hunting accident. And so there's just, like, so much that has been going on in this kid's life by the time he escalates to the point of, like, killing himself.
Yeah. Yeah, planning an act of terrorism. And like I said, I think that all of the characters, including Logan, are very compassionately handled by the author. And I really appreciated that. But after that happens, there is a book that is found in Logan's, like, home office that has one of the false book jackets, and on the inside is actually Catcher in the Rye. And this leads everybody to kind of realize, and it comes out in the open, that Lula Dean's little library has been tampered with. And Lula Dean then, as a result, decides to press charges on Lindsay for doing all of the book swapping, basically lying about how much the books were worth and then charging her for theft. She refuses to back down from this, even when it's proven that the amount she paid for the books is basically nothing, and it makes no sense for her to be trying to get this tried as a felony offense. And the only thing that ends up putting her in place is she has 2 kids who essentially, as soon as they got old enough, left town and went no contact with Lula, who she, throughout the course of the book, has very obviously cared quite a lot about, and you can see that it impacts her quite a bit, that her kids don't want to be in her life as much as she would like to be in theirs. They end up showing back up in town and calling her out on the church steps for the way that she has behaved in the past, and the way that that behavior is contradictory to this behavior, and also just kind of how she was a not great mother and not great person to be around.
They also exposed that she read smut.
Yeah, exactly. Like, she's saying we need to ban pornographic material in the library when she always had something that would be considered literally pornographic on her bedside table. And they end up essentially getting Lula Dean to drop the case and also agree to have the library books and stuff like that put back under the condition of, hey, we will hang out with you and say hello to you. You just have to stop being such a bitch. And she agrees to that and goes back to being a quiet person. Then we get to the epilogue of the book, and we see that Beverly won the mayorship and has then gone on to do more political work, along with Isaac Wright, who has gotten into politics. The town has improved a lot because Bella Cunningham and Wilma Jean have kind of used Wilma Jean's great wealth after she dies to invest in public works, like a new library and a museum and stuff like that. And everybody is happy, and the world is a wonderful place to live in.
Yeah. I wanted to mention that scene with, so one of Lula Dean's children, it turns out, is trans and also a drag queen.
Mm-hmm.
And that scene was hilarious. Like, it was very satire.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, kids, gather around. It's time for drag queen story time. Like, it was cracking me up to read.
Yeah.
I was like, this is ridiculous. But,
yeah, they're very much, the two of them are playing into what is happening in the South at the time when the book is set, of like, oh, she's a drag queen, she's doing drag queen story time, like, oh, shield your children's eyes because this is going to be this is going to be so problematic.
Oh my gosh. And then there's these two, sorry, I'm just adding more to this plot summary. There's these two like older people not older, but they're like empty nesters. Like, they're probably in their 50s, late 50s or something, maybe early 60s, I don't know. And their son is off at college, and they've just become like victims to basically Fox News. Like, they're terrified of the world. They think everything out there is scary. Like when their son approaches the door, the husband grabs his gun just in case it's an intruder. Like, they think everything's out to get them and the world's gone to hell. Anyways.
Yeah.
But they're at the drag queen story time, and they are like loving it, and they're like, this is so fun. And so the it's not actually Fox News, but like the equivalent in the book comes to interview them about this impromptu drag queen in their town. And in the interview, they're like, oh, we loved it. And they were like, they said, like, how did you feel about this unwanted visitor? And the woman's like, I wouldn't say unwanted, I would say unexpected. Like, it was so fun. Anyways, they like give positive reviews of this, but then like when they sit down so excitedly to watch the newscast later, and they made it seem like
their interview has been totally edited to a different stance than what they were saying.
Yeah, like, thought it was terrible, and this is corrupting everyone. And then the husband looks at the wife and was like, I think we just became fake news. And that also made me laugh out loud.
Yeah, that was good. I'm glad you brought that one up because I had forgotten to mention that. But yeah, that was another good side story.
Yeah.
That's essentially it for the plot summary. I had a couple of minor notes that I was going to say. Specifically, I wish that every book that was referenced was a real book.
Yeah.
I think that there's some cases where I understand why a real book wasn't used in place of a fake title, but for both the like quote unquote wholesome books and some of the banned books, not all of them are actual titles, and I just feel like it would have hit a little bit harder and been a little bit more relevant if all of them had been.
Yeah.
That's just a little bit of a sticking point for me. And then the last thing that I was going to say is be sure to donate to little free libraries. This book is very in support of little free libraries, and little free libraries do a lot for increasing access to books in neighborhoods that are not currently being serviced by any kind of other resource when it comes to books. And if nothing else, this is a story that is pro access to books because of the transformative nature that books can have. So if you have a little free library in your neighborhood, put books in there, check books out. If you don't have a little free library, they've got information on their page for how you could set one up. And if you have no interest in setting one up and you don't have one nearby, you can always donate to them, and then they use those donations to put little free libraries in underserved neighborhoods. So I can potentially put a link to that in the show notes, and you can check it out there. But did you have any other closing thoughts about the plot of the book, Sid? Oh, I was going to ask you. This was the first book that made me cry that we've read so far.
Yeah, it was the first book that made me cry too.
What parts made you cry? For me, it was just the ending, like getting to the end of the book. It was, I liked it a lot.
Well, Logan Walsh's suicide made me cry. I think it was when Elijah Wright was reading that stupid gay romance, and like it was really sweet. I didn't cry, but I teared up about him being like, "Oh, my brother," and he like, oh, it was when his mother was talking about like what he did for his brother, like. Yeah. And then Isaac realized it, and he was like, "You read that entire book for me?" And then they both did. Like, that was really sweet. That made me tear up. And I think I teared up at, like, some part of Darlene's story. Yeah. But the part that actually made me, like, cry was the Logan Walsh part, which surprised me. But it also was just, like, really, I don't know. That one was, like, intense. Yeah, but definitely. I also thought the way it ends... Like, I was crying, and then I thought he potentially shot someone else. It doesn't make it clear that he actually shot himself. It just says he, like, aimed the gun and pulled the trigger. And so I didn't know what happened, and I was just like, oh, no. Like, this is awful. We didn't talk about Mitch Sweeney and his real turnaround in life. Yeah, that made if you were unfamiliar with the book, the reference made no sense. But Mitch Sweeney was a character. He was an international movie star, and he was fun. He has a whole character arc of going from being this person who plays bad guys on TV and has conservative politics and is thinking about getting into a political career, into, by the end of the book, he's saying, no, I'm not a bad guy, I just play one on TV. And he's looking for, he shows really, like, the way that someone can be a good person and still be flawed, where at the end of the book, he's wanting to tell the story of the different people that are in the town and, like, what's gone on here. And he
considers casting himself for like I forget which one it is, but like the Delvin role, and his brother's like, you can't do that, you can't play a black man in this movie.
And then he's like, oh, do you think I can make Beverly Underwood a man? And his brother's like, nah, dude.
Yeah, you
Like,
that part of the story is important for the characters that they were.
But he ends up being like decent, but he's also just kind of like, all right.
Yeah.
There's also the librarian's a cool character, and we don't necessarily need to talk
yeah.
about her, but she's cool. She's a member of the Cherokee tribe that still resides in the area that originally, like, you know, that was their land. And it touches on that a little bit, and, you know, the Trail of Tears. It touches on that briefly in the book, which, I mean, is a big subject to touch on. But she's also just, like, a cool woman. Like, she's a local librarian, and she's really passionate about her books, and, very selfless.
Like I said, there's over a dozen narrating characters, and I think that every character is interesting and fun and cool. I'd recommend giving it a shot if anything we've said so far has sounded interesting to you, but we'll hold off on official reviews until episode 3. I think that that's all that we can say this week without getting into themes and stuff. So, we're going to move into playing our favorite game, Have They Read It? A game where we speculate wildly as to whether or not notable figures have read the book that we're talking about. This one is interesting because of how new it is, where it's not like a classic or anything. I feel like there's obviously just going to be fewer copies circulating of Lula Dean's Little Library than of 1984 or something like that.
Yeah.
So, this is something that I know, but you don't know until next episode when I'll tell you about it. But this author has ties to Jason Segel, the actor in How I Met Your Mother and Forgetting Sarah Marshall. Do you believe... I would assume that Jason Segel has read this because they're friends. Do you think Jason Segel's co-star in Forgetting Sarah Marshall, Mila Kunis, has read this book?
I've never seen Forgetting Shara. I've never seen Forgetting Sarah Marshall, but I know Mila Kunis. I don't know a lot about her, like, life. She seems like she might read.
She might. Anybody might.
Anybody might read. I don't know. Maybe Jason read it. Is that still being filmed? Or it's over? Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
It was a movie, so it's over.
It was a movie. Oh, when did it come out?
2008.
Oh, what? Oh, so they're not hanging out, Jason and Mila.
I mean, they could be. I really don't know.
I'm gonna see if there's.
I don't know who's friends with who in Hollywood.
Does Mila Kunis hang out with Jason Segel? Wait, no, that's cheating. Actually, I can't look it up. I don't know. Sure, yeah. She looks like she might read.
Sweet.
I don't know. What do you think?
I think not. I just think that this book is new enough that most people haven't. More people should, is what I guess I should say.
No. Okay, so let's see. Who is someone from the South who reads? You know, actually, do you think Colson Whitehead has read this book?
Interesting. I think not. Because this is so different stylistically than what Colson Whitehead writes.
Yeah.
And so I know that obviously you can read stuff that's outside of your style, but I would assume that you would read... Like, I feel like Colson Whitehead would read literary fiction more than satirical fiction. And
That
this
makes
is
sense.
new enough that I don't know if he would have... Like, I feel like if you were going to read this, you would have kind of had to hear about it and gone out of your way to have read it. And I just don't know if it would have made it to the top of his list to read yet. It wouldn't surprise me if he had, and it wouldn't surprise me if he chooses to in the future because, you know, about banning books in the South.
Yeah.
But I would guess probably not yet. So I'm thinking of Georgia and the Georgia political landscape. Do you believe that the governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp, has read Lula Dean's Little Library? I wouldn't think so either.
I think so. Seems unlikely to me. Maybe Stacey
Abrams?
has.
Possibly. I don't know what her reading habits are either.
Yeah.
I mean, I assume that she reads. I don't know. I feel like I make the base assumption that everybody reads, and that's probably not true. But
Okay, this person has done a lot for activism in small communities for like access to reading and books. Has this thing you might know it called the Imagination Library.
Yeah.
And it's from the South. Do you think
Familiar.
Dolly Parton?
I think I'm gonna go with yes. I think she probably has, because I think that Dolly Parton probably likes to read books that are set in the South.
Yeah.
And I think that she sees herself as somebody who tries to promote the good aspects of having books in your home, obviously as a result of Imagination Library.
She values education.
Yeah. So I feel like this would be something that for the themes and the setting, she would have an interest in.
Yeah. Well, Dolly, if you haven't read it, I think you'd like it.
That's our shout out from us to you.
Also, hey, girl.
But I think that's going to do it for us. Thank you so much for listening and for tuning in. Next week is going to be a episode talking about the context behind Lula Dean, talking a little bit about the history and a little bit about the author. And I hope that you tune in to join us for that. Our intro and outro are remixes of the song 48 by Cullah. And Sid, if people want to find us between now and next episode, where can they do so?
Yeah, go watch my little library pickup vlog. You can find us on Instagram at the Satire Fire Pod, POD, or on TikTok, Blue Sky, as well as YouTube at the Satire Fire. And yeah, like, comment, follow, subscribe, whatever you want to do. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for tuning in this week. Don't forget to support your local library. I am Samuel.
I'm Sydney.
And we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
I just about come to the end of the road. Here, I've just about lost patience with you people. You get your ass out into the mountains or someplace, or hide in there and watch that damn tube. But if not, fuck it. I'm done. In fact, my sermon